Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over underrated?
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Överschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
Hello, music fans. This is the latest episode of Over Underrated, and it's the first one with a special guest, my good friend Kate Allvey, who I've known for a long time as we did a radio show together. On that radio show, we had a bit of a sound clash, as Kate was big into punk, and I was into indie and really not much else at the time. I've evolved since. So we thought she'd be a great guest to come and talk about overrated and underrated punk bands on today's episode. Check it out.
Sous-évalué. Over underrated. Sopra sottovalutato. Over underrated.
Welcome to Over Underrated. This is the first episode we're recording in 2021. I am Babs, and how are you, Fran?
I am fine. I am locked down and ready to go. And I believe that there's currently a bit of anarchy in the UK. Am I right?
What a lovely segue into the topic for today, which is punk. That's correct. And it's a special episode today, as it's the first one we're recording with a special guest. So we're going to be discussing punk today with Kate Allvey or Catherine Allvey. I don't know which one you prefer. Okay.
I'm Kate to my friends.
Okay.
I'm Catherine when I'm trying to be professional.
Okay, so are we making you professional? You know, because we're going to ask you to promote your podcast. So,
Oh, you guys are my friends.
Okay,
You're my friends now,
Good.
so it's fine.
All right. Well, our special guest today is Kate Allvey, my first ever co-host on a radio show. We met at the University of Warwick back in 2005 when we were placed randomly together to create a radio show and fast became friends despite having differing music tastes. And in fact, one of the main features on our radio show was one called Indie versus Punk, where I would pick an indie song, Kate would pick a punk song, and we'd ask people to vote on which they think was the best. So I will now leave her to introduce herself further and talk about why she has chosen punk today and why she loves it so much. Kate, over to you.
All right. Hello, internet. You might recognise my dulcet tones from my podcast, which I have. It's called Straight Talking English, and it is the least punk thing maybe in the world ever, because I researched the history behind school literature textbooks, and I tell you all about the history and context of your favourite textbooks, because what is more punk rock than Charles Dickens? I go by Catherine on that podcast because it's my my professional-ish one, but we're all buddies here. Barbara is absolutely correct. I was bitten by the punk rock bug when I was about 15. I believe, thinking back in the mists of time, this may have been the era of Green Day's Minority. I want to be a minority, down with the moral majority, because I want to be a minority. And it's pretty easy to remember, to be honest. And it got me thinking a little bit about, why do I see things slightly differently than older people, than my mum and dad? Bless my mum and dad, and my auntie and uncle, my teachers. Why do a lot of things bother me? I'm a little bit cross about them. This is the year of the war on Iraq. NoFX, war on terrorism. And from getting a little bit of Green Day off my mate who lived down the road, it's sort of just spiraled from there, to be honest. Most people had a goth phase or a punk phase when they were a teenager, but I'm 33 and I've never really grown out of it. In today's modern world, more than ever, I am reminded that a lot of things aren't very good. Lots of things are not very good at the moment. As Babs has just mentioned, myself and Fran, we're in No More Tears, Johnson's No More Tears shampoo New Year 2021, in which we are in full national lockdown. We have had a year of Black Lives Matter. We have a year of underfunded NHS. We have had a year of all kinds of rubbish things happening, and this is the point at which, if you've got an inner punk rocker, maybe they've got really cool hair like me, I don't know, this is an audio medium, you can't even see how cool my hair is,
Or how cool her tattoos are, by the way, as well.
I literally wore a really good shirt so you guys could see them today. maybe a little punk rocker inside you is thinking we could do a little bit better. Maybe you're thinking a lot of other people's music has too many chords. And in that case, you're probably feeling a little bit punk rock. For the record, my hair, the light in my living room isn't great. It's the colour of a yellow highlighter. It took me blimmin' ages.
And I have also tried my best to make myself a rockabilly-esque haircut here, guys.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I had no
love it.
brooch. So I think Babs has kind of let us down.
I mean, I'm wearing liquid eyeliner, which is more than I wear for these recorders normally. But and I'm wearing a Kills t-shirt, which is not very punk either. But yeah,
the Kills are quite punk.
I mean, I guess they've got a sort of DIY ethos, right? You know, they used to record. You know, she lived in America, he lived in the UK. They'd send tapes over to each other, so that's the vibe I'm going for. But yeah, when it comes to punk, I have to say I think it's one of those. You know, I like rock, but it is one of those genres that I've never quite completely clicked with. I grew up in Luxembourg, where it was actually quite a big subculture here, and I had an ex-boyfriend who got me into it and made me listen to a lot of NoFX, Bouncing Souls,
hot water music,
Propaganda, etc. And I always found it interesting, and I always kind of admire the DIY ethos and everything else, but I never quite clicked with it, which is why I thought Kate would be a perfect guest for today. Fran, what's your feeling about punk? Because I actually don't know either.
I mean, it all depends on what you call punk. I mean, to me, still, punk is where we're starting today in the 70s, and mainly like that era. But obviously, when I was working, as I always mention, in retail, I was working with the modern day punksters who are into like the 90s American punk, which is a kind of a different beast. So I guess I'm more into like the Clash and the Jam than say Rancid or I don't know, early Green Day. So I don't mind punk, but I'm not into Black Flag or like the hardcore punk. So if it's classic rock punk, I'm on board. And if it's pop punk, I'm kind of on board.
Mr. Fran, you have touched upon one of the biggest punk controversies of all time. We in London, specifically the magical world of South London, from which I am from, but not currently sitting in, we believe that we invented punk rock. However, New York believe that they invented punk rock. And it's somewhat of a friendly divide, such as, Man U, Man City, a friendly rivalry. But yeah, a lot of people would say punk is a different beast, the other side of the Atlantic. And a lot of people would say, no, we all have a shared love of kicking things.
But not spitting on people, not in this day and age.
Oh, sweet Jesus, no. That's my Clash fact of the day, by the way. That was the thing Joe Strummer used to hate most about being in the Clash, is getting spat on because he once got hepatitis off of it.
Oh, lovely.
Just the grimmest thing you can think of, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess if you're going from like the New York Dolls and Stooges being the mecca of punk, I guess you kind of say Americans got there first. But the punk, like the classic punk, I think you've got to look at the UK, don't you? That sound.
You do. Iggy Pop would. I don't know if he call himself a punk, but I would say he is one. But yeah, like, I mean, I focused on European punk today, not just English speaking, as I was moaning via WhatsApp. I'm kind of just leaving America on its own.
But yeah, Fran, it's interesting that you said that you were into pop punk, because I actually wrote down that I think pop punk is one of my least favorite genres. I think I like my punk when it goes a bit artier, a bit like, the Clash and the Jam, like you say, also the Stranglers, who started off very punk and then went way, way off. But pop punk is difficult for me to grasp, because generally I've said this before, I prefer pop to pop rock. I think when it comes to that, I prefer it normally. And given that punk is not a genre that I like so much, I think pop punk can sometimes great.
Would you not say that the Subways have a foot in pop punk?
No, because I like them.
Really? I'm just saying. I think, it could be a pop punk song maybe, but hey. I won't hurt your feelings.
Listen, you've hurt my feelings way worse before. No, so, I would say that for me, it's about minor and major keys, and oh yeah, I think isn't a minor key. You know, it's not in a melodic key, to overuse a word that we probably say every single episode. But yeah, it was interesting listening to Kate's choices, because I think it's the first time where I've really kind of actually sat down to analyze punk. I feel like it was something that people always try to kind of get me into, something that's a bit more kind of in the background, that I'm interested in kind of intellectually more than kind of emotionally. So it was very interesting to kind of sit down and analyze it, is what I felt.
Overrated.
So, Kate, who have you chosen for your overrated band today?
My overrated band are the Sex Pistols.
Uh-huh.
The thing about the Sex Pistols is that nobody I know actually likes them. And I've got friends into folk punk, classic punk, like anarcho punk. I literally was having a beer with a guy who was involved in the DIY punk scene in like the 80s, who's also my neighbour, called Steve. I have yet to meet a single person who actually listens to them for fun. And I find that really weird, because, you know, this seminal band saying huge influence on everybody. I don't actually know anyone who likes them. It's so weird. They, in some ways, we sort of have to separate their image and them as like a product, them as an icon, and their music. So if we take them as a concept, they are unlike anything else at the time. They are, to quote historian Ian Kershaw, a sui generis, a unique phenomenon, which he actually used to describe Hitler. That was not intentional, but it's a good phrase.
I was about to say, you're raising the tone of our podcast by quoting a historian, but then you talked about Hitler, so, you know, swings and roundabouts.
Well, we're going to come back to Hitler later.
Oh yeah, we are actually, yeah.
Oh god. They are unlike anything else. People who have been at their shows have said it was unlike anything else in the world. Most of that reputation, hilariously, comes from them saying fuck and shit. So they were invited on a program called Today, and they were playing, like, this is a band here today, to play their song. And the presenter said, like, they said, can we swear? And the presenter's like, yeah, go on and swear. And they're like literal teenagers. And they're like, all right then. And like, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to stop a teenager doing something, but if you tell them not to, they literally want to do it more than the world. And because this is the 70s, this whole attitude comes from there. The other thing about the Sex Pistols that I think is overrated is they are allegedly as manufactured as One Direction. According to Shane MacGowan from the Pogues in his autobiography, he basically said that the Sex Pistols would go along to see bands, see what people were wearing in the audience and what their song sounded like. They'd run back to Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren, and then like the next day it'd be available for sale. They are allegedly commercial, pre-packaged, like the opposite of One Direction. Rather than like appealing to hormonal teenage girls, they're supposed to be like the boy your hormonal teenage daughter brings home and then you kick out the house. Like 50% outrage. In terms of, if we're keeping things literally musical, yeah, it is unlike anything else of its time. Yeah, it is incredibly like stripped back, but it's just not very good.
Okay, so before we start getting into the songs, so Fran, what was your view on the Sex Pistols before you listened to the selection?
I have seen a Sex Pistol in the flesh.
Where? When? How?
I have seen Glenn Matlock playing
Ooh.
Borders. Ever remember Borders?
Yeah.
In about 2005, he did a solo show downstairs in Borders in Bournemouth, and he did an acoustic show, and he ended up by playing Anarchy in the UK. So I have seen the original person who wrote it, and saying they were manufactured is one of the reasons why he was kicked out, because he just didn't look like a Sex Pistol, and Sid Vicious, he fit the bill, even though he couldn't play a note.
And what was it like?
What's in Gillen Matlock?
Yeah.
I mean, I started a band straight away, just like when people saw the Sex Pistols back in '76. Yeah, I mean, it was a tick the box exercise, so I can say I saw a legend. But yeah, Sex Pistols. Do you know what? I've never ever in my life listened to the whole album apart from today.
One has.
I've always known the 3 singles. I think Danny Baker said that punk was amazing at the time, but who goes back and listens to any of those punk records from the 70s? No one does. Maybe the Clash. But yeah, I mean, it was just a part of that era, and it did a lot for music. But yeah, musically, no one's putting on the first Damn record now, really.
No.
Yeah, I think I really actually only knew the 2 main songs, Anarchy in the UK and God Save the Queen. I realised, I was like, surely I'll know more. Nope, I didn't. The rest was kind of a complete surprise to me. And yeah, I think, like Kate, I don't know anyone who was a huge Sex Pistols fan for more than, I'm going to say, like 2 months. It's like they'd be really into them for that much, really probably get into the story of them and like you say, the product of the Sex Pistols and what they wore and what they stood for, more than anything else. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, especially to dive down deeper into the demo album that came before the main one, because so a lot of the songs that you provided, Kate, there's a Never Mind the Bollocks, here's a Sex Pistols version, and then a version from Spunk, which was from the same year, right? So what can you tell us about that album? Because I'd never heard of it, actually.
But Babs, is this the first time you've ever said spunk in public? I mean, embrace it.
It's the first time this year, Fran. Let's say that.
Is it? Okay.
I would say it's a bootleg.
Mm-hmm.
It's not official. Because they, as far as I know, they literally recorded these studio demos and then like didn't do anything about it and then just sat on it. Like that was it. McLaren's company owns all the right to these demos, so we could say this was like McLaren's first sort of preparing to release them into the world. Is do like your soft release with Spunk and see how it goes. But with a lot of these things, it gets repackaged as a nice little dealy deal later on in life. But yeah,
so yeah,
it's basically the same.
It's the same because so there's God Save the Queen, which is known as No Future, Anarchy in the UK, which is known as Nookie, which I did not expect to get images of Fred Durst when I was listening to this. And then there's No Feelings, or Never Mind, and Feelings - No Feelings from Spunk. Okay, so I have to say, and this is, I'm going to say pretty typical me, I way preferred every single Spunk version. That's a sentence you won't hear me say very often. I preferred every single Spunk version compared to the Never Mind the Bollocks one. It was way rawer, way more interesting, less poppy, maybe. I was really surprised by how different they were and how much more I enjoyed it. What about you, Fran?
Because the bass lines are far better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know me. I love a good bass line. Yeah.
I was just going to say, you even liked the Sex Pistols before they were cool, Babs. Peak hipster.
Peak fucking hipster. Yeah.
Peak.
I can't tell too much difference between God Save the Queen. So when I was listening to this just on Bluetooth, I thought, oh, is this the same song again? Like as a mistake. And then I realised it was a different producer, a different studio version. Yeah. But later on, like I can hear Anarchy in UK, the Spunk version is quite different. Yeah, it's not, for me, it wasn't a massive difference. I was surprised about, we'll probably get later on, about the lost demos, because I could literally not even recognise live and vocal. Was it him singing?
Yeah.
Because it sounds completely different, doesn't it, when he doesn't record?
I don't know what the opposite of voice training is, like smoking. I think I can't tell if he's either hit the booze or he's had a lot of cigarettes in between. Like I honestly would say that the opposite of voice training. like voice slackening.
Because I thought, hang on, is this like
Yeah.
later on when Sid Vicious or Steve Jones took the mic or something? Because literally could not recognise him at all. But hey,
Yeah, either that or someone's sort of taught him to enunciate, like, how now, brown cow, and like maximizing the jaw to like get it out there. I wouldn't put it past Matlock, to be honest.
so with these
Oh,
demos,
McLaren, sorry, got no beef with Matlock.
was this to sort of like show off a different side? Like with these songs you chose, were they to prove that they're overrated, or were they just wanting to show a rainbow of Sex Pistols?
I wanted to show you. I mean, you would think, right, on paper, a Sex Pistols raw demo from the 70s would be like the punkest thing ever. But actually, there were like one packaged commercial album is exactly the same. So it's going to bring up this point of like, is it the same as the raw punkest thing ever? Or is it just like the powers that be took something that was reasonably authentic and then just like put a nice little bow on it and put it in some wrapping paper to try and market it to young people who are annoyed about the IRA?
Yeah, that's the thing, because although I preferred, and I keep saying this, I preferred Spunk, I can see that the music from Spunk isn't as, let's say, original as the way that it was produced for Never That Mind the Box. It sounds different to what was going on at the time. So yeah, it was really interesting to see that. And yeah, I was expecting, Kate, that every single song you were going to pick was going to be from Never Mind the Bollocks, as well as the ones that we've just mentioned. There's also Holidays in the Sun, which had interesting lyrics. He's like criticizing poverty tourism.
Did.
What is that about?
I wrote that down. Like, it's, you know, like, okay, the cliche now of like your misery tourism, or you know, you're the white savior, I'm going to spend my gap year saving people. He's acknowledging it, even as far back as the blimmin' 70s, the rise of your Club 18 to 30 all-inclusive package. For someone who hasn't really been outside very much, it's a spot on one from you there, Johnny. Very nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those lyrics as well. Whereas No Feelings, like it was like, I don't know, the precursor to Reagan or something, because it's like the most individualistic, like, I love so what the lyrics? I'm in love with myself, my beautiful self. I've no feeling for anybody else. And I was like, okay, well, is that punk? Because is that rejecting kind of society's shackles? Or is that kind of the precursor to neoliberalism and a view of what Johnny Rotten was going to be like in the 2020s?
It also has a guitar solo as well. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
It seems very unpunk for the time.
I saw it as like being a weird self-harm thing. Like, my narcissism is justifying my self-harm. And there was like, it's one of the things which is actually quite problematic about the punk community. And I mean, like, where do we blimmin' start? But yeah, self-harm was very normalized in early punk scenes as being like this rebellious act rather than how it would be seen now. And I just took it as one of their sketchier moments of somewhat promoting self-harm.
Okay, I guess I didn't know about that, so that's not how I interpreted it. I thought it was just really like an ode to individualism. Yeah, what did you think, Fran?
Well, I know that Matlock didn't like the lyrics for most of the Sex Pistols songs. This is another reason why he wanted to leave. But I guess what Johnny Rotten or Lydon was like 19 years old. So, you know, when you're 19, you want to be a bit controversial, don't you? Especially when he's in a band called the Sex Pistols. So I'm pretty sure that's part of it. Yeah, I never heard No Feeling before. The only songs I knew was the 3 singles, which is God Save the Queen, and in the UK, and Holidays in the Sun, Stroke, In the City by the Jam. It sounds exactly the same.
It really does. I also Pretty Vacant.
That's well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thinly disguised cast, depending on where you put your intonation on that one. It's that one cover, that one album, that's it, basically.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
So outside of those, you also included what was my favorite track, I Wanna Be Me, which seems to be a B-side to Anarchy in the UK. I wrote great bass line, And it wasn't even in Spunk, right? So yeah, do you know more about the history of that song and why it was included as a B-side but not in anywhere else?
I had a feeling it was a cover. It is very mysterious. It's generally, not very much is known about it. The only other mention of that song is by a 1950s black artist. So a lot of original first wave punk was involved in the rock against racism movement. And you get things like Pressure Drop by The Clash, which is a cover of Toots and the Maytals, or Brand New Cadillac, which is a cover of like an old 50s song, Vince Taylor. So you get these like really eclectic influences, frequently black musicians being brought in as an influence, which is my vibe of where that's coming from. However, it could be to do with the rock and roll swindle.
Yes. Where you put My Way, which is a cover version of the Frank Sinatra song, and a fucking weird one as
Babs,
well.
is that your first time you've ever heard it?
And My Way.
No, 'cause that's quite well known in the UK, that cover.
The cover, no, that was the first
Oh,
time I
wow.
heard it. I thought I was losing my mind. I was just
No.
like, what? How is he singing? Because it starts one way, and I was like, am I really going to have to listen to like however long it is,
Yes.
3.5 minutes of this? And then it kind of goes into like a Sex Pistols-esque cover, you would think. And then I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here. And yeah, I'd never heard of the Great Rock and Roll Swindle or The Filth and the Fury, which is like the answer film that comes afterwards, because it seems that it's a film about the Sex Pistols, but Johnny Rotten didn't want to be involved, and where Matlock also only appears in archive footage. So yeah, I mean, you're also the film buff, Fran. So did you know about this? I imagine.
Yeah, it's like one of those, like, every time people talk about the punk movement, if there's a punk night on Channel 4, they will have to show that film, and they will have to have Sid Vicious in a white suit singing My Way, and it's like it's the most cliche sort of image of punk rock in the 1970s. So yeah, I knew that version, and I think they tried to make Sid Vicious a solo star post Sex Pistols. Obviously, that was cut off quite soon for reasons.
Again, the links to One Direction. They tried to make a Harry Styles, but they let him have too much smack. Basically, you can't have a marketable solo artist who you're just like, have some heroin. I will say though, the song My Way, according to Wikipedia, has been reported to cause numerous incidents of violence and homicides among drunkards in bars in the Philippines.
Yep. There is a radio show about this. That's a very nice thing, actually. So there's a one-off radio show about this by Gabriel Ibulu, who does a 3-track podcast where he went to the Philippines to try and investigate, if it really was causing suicides and murders, apparently.
So is karaoke illegal in that country?
No,
Oh, no.
it's not illegal, but I think from what I remember of the program, it's just like very often people who would be singing it would be with kind of like an intent, to kind of show up someone else, and then they'd get into an argument, and fights would ensue and stuff like that. It's really weird. I really recommend checking it out. I think it's a BBC show. If I find it, I'll add it to the show notes.
Apparently, there's a dig at John Lydon in Sid's version of My Way. Apparently, he says he refers to a Pratt who wears hats, and that is his beef with his former mate. You would think, considering how many cussings there are in that cover, he could have thought of a little bit more of a fiery one than Pratt.
We still haven't mentioned Belson is a Gas, and I really want to talk about it because, yeah. Yeah, what the hell? Okay, so Belson was a Gas, which is on Never Mind the Bollocks reissue. I wrote down, is this a precursor to 4chan and controversial humor? Because it basically seems like little boys going like, "Woo-hoo-hoo, let's be like, make jokes about Jewish people." And
it's supposed to be funny. Like it's supposed to be dark humor, and it is literally written just to essentially be controversial, to like get the media inches and annoy older people. When John Lydon grew up a bit, he called it a nasty, silly little thing. It is just 4chan. Lester Bangs, the famous music critic, said the ending of Johnny Rotten shouting for people to end their own lives is one of the most frightening things he's ever heard. It is. You're absolutely right. Your interpretation is correct. Yes.
What did you think, Fran?
I mean, I'm surprised you heard lyrics. I mean, I will sound like a grandpa. It does sound like a lot of noise to me, and I switch my head off. It literally could be any band, any punk band I've ever heard in my entire life. Like is that the Sex Pistols? I just thought it was nonsense, and I just switched off. Sorry, guys.
No, it's fine. I mean, so I went on Wikipedia because I was so confused. And he still played it when he was in PIL or PIL.
Yeah, public image, yeah.
But yeah, it says, oh, it's been covered by these people, and the neo-Nazi skinhead band No Remorse. So I'm like, yeah,
Have we
probably
done
not
them yet at all in this podcast?
Have we not?
We haven't covered them yet, have we?
Oh, we haven't
Overrated,
covered,
underrated.
Fran, we should do a special episode. Let's do neo-Nazi as a theme.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Jesus. I would say, considering, so I just found this hilarious. The bad things that the protagonist says they're going to do in Anarchy in the UK is stop a traffic line and destroy the passerby. So basically, like, smack a stranger and stand in the middle of the road. And that's like, oh, I shall clutch my pearls. And then we go straight into Belson was a gas, which is offensive to, I would just say everybody. Not even specifically anti-Semitic, it's just offensive to like everyone with ears.
And to the ears, yeah.
Just people. But it's, that just leaping controversy.
Yeah, that was, I mean, again, thinking about it, it shouldn't surprise me, but it did, I guess, because about the myth of the Sex Pistols, and you think that, they were pushing the envelope against kind of conservatism and prudity, but this is not that. This is, people who want to be offensive for the sake of it, and it doesn't add much else. They also mentioned Belson, I think, in Holidays in the Sun, and there it's in a completely different context.
I wasn't going to mention my day job because I want to pretend I'm cool. But like many creative professionals, I have to have a day job in order to pay the bills. My day job is I work with young people who aren't in education for whatever reason, maybe ex-offenders, asylum seekers, health issues, whatever. There's a reason them and a school are not a thing. But I was a classroom teacher before that. Honest to God, I don't feel like any of my 17-year-old students, if you gave them vast quantities of alcohol, money, and put them in the national media, I don't know if any of them would resist saying bad words in order to get a little bit of attention, to be honest. I feel like someone should have just given them a hot cocoa and told them to have a little sit down, and they might have done a bit better. I don't think my students would have done much better. I mean, prove me wrong if you're listening, guys, but also you shouldn't listen to this podcast. It's got swearing in.
Regarding the Sex Pistols, are they overrated? As in, like, if I put on the album today and listen to it, would I rate it? Or are they overrated as the whole Shabil, the Sex Pistol world?
They overrated in the sense that if someone handed you a copy of Nevermind the Bollocks, they'd probably say, oh, it's this iconic album. Oh, like it changed the face of modern music. And you'd listen to it and be like, what? How? Why? Like, you can't, that is why I would say they're overrated.
Well, in that case, yeah, I mean, apart from 3 or 4 tracks, it's fine. It's just a fine punk album, and it doesn't deserve...
It's fine.
I mean, the Rolling Stones put it in the top 500 albums of all time. But is that them thinking, oh, but they're such a defining band, guys? So, yeah, but musically, it's just a fine punk with a few decent singles.
Well, I guess it's like what Kate said at the beginning of Live, probably. They're one of the great bands, and that's it. Like, the album can only capture so much of that, and even the live versions can only capture so much of that because the quality is so bad and the voices are kind of illegible. But yeah, I would agree with you, Kate, that they are overrated, with the caveat that despite musically being overrated, you can't really separate them from what they stood for and how they did influence music moving forward.
Yeah,
we all agree.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överundervärderat. Underskattad. Over underrated.
So that's the end of part one. It's really interesting to hear Kate talk about the Sex Pistols like that. I don't think we'd ever discussed it in that level of detail. When I was listening back to this episode, I realised that there are actually a few punk bands that I'm into. Actually, at one point, Fran says, no one listens to the first Damned record anymore. Actually, I do, Fran, thank you very much. So I wanted to take this midsection to shout out the Damned and shout out the Dead Kennedys, who are really good. I also like Fugazi, but I don't really know where they stand on that punk thing. We didn't get around to talking about it. But I digress. Let's move on into part two of Over Underrated, where we're talking German punk from East Berlin.
Underrated.
So we move on to your next choice.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys are completely ready for how much awesomeness I am going to throw in your way.
Oh, ready. I'm very ready.
You ready?
Okay.
So your
All right.
underrated pick is...
They're called Madsin, Madsin, and they are from Berlin. Now, I believe this is a conversation I have had many times over the years, Fabs. British people not being aware of non-English speaking artists. Madsin are the example of this. So a lot of modern punks of many different punk subgenres will cite Madsin as being a really big influence. They are not really famous outside Germany. I saw them once, and they are partly the reason no one's heard them outside Germany is they're incredibly mysterious. I saw them once as a last minute support. So there was supposed to be one support band playing with this good punk band, but they got stopped at the border because they've all got criminal records, because why? So Madsin were persuaded to come over and support. Absolutely tremendous live band. Like, I cannot fully describe the energy that they brought to it. Their singer, who I'm going to call, his real name is Marius, but we're going to call him Köfter. His stage name is Köfter de Ville, as in the devil's kebab. He is a big guy. He is our big man.
An absolute unit, yeah.
He is an absolute unit. Köfter throws himself around the stage, and it is this combination of like just energy and huge dudes just flinging himself, and the voice is just brilliant. And I want to see them again, but they don't tour. They booked one date in England since that date in my entire life, and they cancelled it. There was a 2-line message on Facebook saying, "We have had to cancel because the guitarist has had a heart attack, full stop."
I mean, that'll do.
They are very difficult to find out about. So Madsin have been going since 1988. They were originally school dropouts who played in the squats of East Berlin, very illegally. The singer, Köfter, his parents were like Z-list East German celebrities. His dad was a one-hit wonder with a song, and his mum was in a daytime soap opera. And this is where I was mentioning earlier, I had to translate this from German. He dropped out of school at 11 because he preferred to spend his days fighting people. But aged 14, he decided he was over that and moved into a squat populated by what he called underground freaks. He says his parents were confused by that choice. Not condemning him, just confused. The way they talk, the way Köfter talks in interviews, they mix in English and German interchangeably. Well, he'll do like 3 words in German, 3 words in English. So I'll make it clear when he said things in English and it's not my sketch translations. He persuaded his best mate from school to drop out when he was 14 as well. That's Tex, the guitarist, and they were actual buskers. However, once they'd saved up enough money busking to afford some amps, they cut their first album, Thrills and Spills, in the dimension of Madsen. they've now recorded 14 albums to varying levels of sanity. There were 10 years hiatus between albums. Two of the last ones that I sent you, Toten Sagten Leben Lange and Moon over Berlin, are from their album that came out this September. There was a 10-year delay because they wanted to take 10 years off recording. Okay, cool. But also not have jobs or do anything. Just take 10 years to drop out. I don't know how Kefta and the band survived. They travelled around Europe not having jobs or recording or using money. And apparently periodically the band would receive voicemails from Kefta detailing parts of songs. After 10 years, they tracked him down to Catalonia and recorded an album in 1 week. They have concluded that they will be doing a club show after the pandemic. Now, you guys might think I'm making it up that they're big in Germany, and like, how can people this frankly beautifully mental be this famous, but we haven't heard of them? There was a version of it in the UK. It's one of these like reality shows where celebrities have to try different things, right? And there was one in the UK where like celebrities had to learn to be like classical musicians,
faking it.
Yeah.
So
Goldie had to be a composer, or no, a conductor or something like that. I remember that.
Yeah. So the German one, they had these classical musicians, a flute player and an oboe player, and they had to meet up with famous bands of different genres and work with them to reimagine a classical piece. So I guess the equivalent in the UK would be like getting like some Mozart and going to Kylie or something, like a household name. And the whole point is like the genres are different. They went to Madsen in their Kreuzberg squat studio and did Beethoven's Fifth. This is where this documentary has come from, because there's enough star power in this band for it to be an hour of mainstream German telly. I'll shut up in a bit, guys. Sorry. I could go on about them all day. They are what we call psychobilly. Now, let me take you back in time, children, into where two of our great ancestors, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, decided, like, they went up into the spirits in the sky and came back down in the form of rain and landed on some punks' heads. Basically, punk has always had this big country influence. And part of being punk is not being afraid of saying things. So a lot of bands, especially American bands, became very open, like, we grew up listening to country. That kind of evolved into, well, if we all like country and we're also punks, why don't we do like country songs in like a punk style? All right, well, why don't we do like 1950s rockabilly, Buddy Holly songs in a punk style? And that kind of became what we would now call psychobilly. If you ask, I will be the only psychobilly person that you know. We are not a large crowd. Basically, songs, country and rockabilly songs, but everyone's dead and it's horror and it's done in a punk style. There's about 10 big name bands. There's a festival every year in Spain. Like, it is a big deal. It's more of a big deal in Spain and Sweden than it is here. But Madsen they headline festivals in Japan. They are the world's best psychobilly, punk, general all-round insane band whose singer may or may not be homeless, that you have never heard of. Seriously, I think he's homeless.
Wow, what an introduction.
Absolutely tremendous band.
Okay, well, yeah, is it, how do you say it, Kofta? Kofta,
like
okay, Kofta,
corner,
Kofta.
yeah.
So Kofta, if you ever, do a Kickstarter or something, let us know. And
if you're homeless, you can live on my houseboat.
Yeah, exactly. In the corner with your gerbils.
But saying that, I mean, their 2020 album, it sounds quite polished, doesn't it? It doesn't sound like these are guys in the squat. It sounds like, I put it down, it sounds like a proper like radio-friendly sound.
They are tremendously talented.
Yeah, I'm really glad you picked them, Kate, because they're definitely a band I'd heard of, but could not have named anything by them, didn't even realise that they were German. And I have texted you in the past being like, hey, can you send me some psychobilly recommendations, please?
Yeah,
So this was
that's
brilliant.
it.
Got them all in one. And I was going to ask you what the difference kind of was and where
Yeah.
punk starts and psychobilly ends, and you've explained that, which is great.
If it's got an upright bass, it's psychobilly.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. I absolutely loved this playlist. I think there was not one song I disliked, which is very unusual for this podcast. Yeah, and I was just really surprised at the breadth of genres, really, because there's definitely some songs that are way more country, some songs that are not, they're a bit punkier. They very often take unexpected turns. So there's a lot of songs where I'd start listening and it would be very poppy and I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't think I like this. But then a weird guitar solo would come in, or some woman would come in doing harmonies, and I was like, oh okay, no, I'm back in. So yeah, I loved it. What did you think, Fran?
I was a bit apprehensive. I do know some fans of. I mean, are they quite different to Misfits? Would you say, Catherine? Cramps.
Misfits, Cramps are their biggest influence, probably. Misfits, yeah, more twiddly diddly Misfits, but definitely the same family.
And the same sort of look, isn't visually? They got a similar sort of vibe.
Yeah, really similar.
So yeah, I mean, I was surprised about. Babs hates this word. Pop they sounded. I mean, I wouldn't really say that they would be punk. Apart from his vocal style, the actual music behind it isn't punk a lot of time. I mean, I think Moon Over Berlin sounds like Big Country, the 80s band with those guitar lines.
Moon Over
Yeah.
Berlin.
It sounds like, I keep thinking big in the big country. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah.
I'm this close to designing a tattoo based on that song.
Oh really?
Depending on how long lockdown lasts, to be honest.
And I enjoy his history teaching. I've got no idea what the song's about, but it's nice hearing his 84 and 85.
I think so. There's 1984, 1989, 1992. I think there's civil unrest.
Oh really? So it is proper history.
That's what I wrote down. I was like, catchy ditty about Berlin's history.
It's so this area, Kreuzberg, where they all lived, it used to be like, just think Shoreditch, like it used to be proper sketch, but it's now a little bit hipster. If there was civil unrest, I imagine the band were probably joining in happily. It's a nice thing to do in an evening.
And I guess you said they formed in 88, right? Which is just before the Berlin Wall came down, and they were based in East Germany. So but yeah, it's funny that you say that one was really pop, Fran, because I wrote punk, rockabilly, and country in one. I felt it was kind of everything, and with a lot of songs, I felt it was everything, but it somehow worked.
Yeah, my question is, you said they're mysterious. Hell yeah! I mean, I kept trying to find out who the female vocalist was.
Yeah.
It's
Patricia Day.
Yeah, is it okay? I literally couldn't find it. It's again for YouTube, everything.
So on the studio recording, her name is Patricia Day. She was she is a tattoo artist who is married to the singer of a very famous Danish psychobilly band called Necromantics. Her and her husband went on tour many years ago in a band called the Horror Pops. She is now, as far as I know, a full-time tattoo artist and photographer, and she is the girl in Dead Moon. In the live version, it's a lady from a band called Bonsai Kitten, but I don't know any more than that. It's so mysterious.
And obsessed with moons, as you said. So you've got Moon Over Berlin, Dead Moon, which is from the album called Dead Moon's Calling.
Yeah. Oh, there's a few more.
Yeah.
Although I also know Babs is a big fan of Eurovision, and I thought Shine the Light could be a German entry.
Oh my god, I think I made the same note.
A rockabilly entry for Eurovision.
Oh no, not for that one. I wrote that was I think actually the one I liked the least, because I wrote it's far too country and sincere for me. But it was a very unexpected ballad. But I think I wrote Eurovision somewhere. Oh no, maybe I didn't.
Yeah. Shine a light on me.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Eurovision is good enough for Madsen.
There you go. Unacceptable. If it's good enough for Lordi, it's good enough for Madsen.
Actually, okay, fair enough. I forgot that was a thing.
Although today, I only watched for the first time because the KLF are back on streaming platforms. And I'd never actually watched the Brits performance of the KLF and Extreme Noise Terror, and I was like, wow. Yeah, so maybe that's more Madsen's vibe than Eurovision.
This is the thing. They are, as far as I can tell, just genuinely very nice people. When in this show with the classical musicians, they kind of set them up. They're like, here's the sheet music for this symphony, like expecting to laugh at them. And then they all very sincerely turned to the bass player and were like, you can read sheet music, right? Can you help us out with this so we can do it properly? I was like, oh.
They're punks, but they're nice punks, even though they also like punching people. Many layers.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
Catherine, would you say that the song Cursed is their biggest single? I saw it had like 3 million views on YouTube, and it seems quite like...
Cursed and Communication break down their biggest singles. Cursed is it's really old. I didn't pick it because I don't think it's very good. You know, sometimes like a band like Sloop John B for the Beach Boys, they have that one single that's not necessarily representative of the rest of their output. It's like that.
Yeah, Golden Brown for the Stranglers or something like that.
Yeah.
Because my least favourite of the playlist was 9 Lives, which also seems to be one of the most successful songs as well, yeah?
9 Lives, that, as far as I can tell, they decided to leave East Berlin to do a psychobilly festival in Texas. So Texas, Spain, Finland, Sweden, and Melbourne in Australia are like the only places where psychobilly lives. They went to Texas and basically got bored and decided to pretend to be Johnny Cash. I like that song.
I'm actually with Fran on that one. I wrote, "Is this extra psychobilly Johnny Cash?" It's fine. I was looking at like which were my favorite songs, and I think most of them are actually from their latest album, Unbreakable.
Yeah,
and they're all very different. So you've got Unbreakable, you've got Shine a Light. I didn't like that one so much, but Moon Over Berlin and Toten sagte Leben lange.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Oh, it means essentially it's the same as like you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Okay. So I guessed because I think literally translated it's like we pronounced dead. No, sorry. The lyrics at the beginning are "We have been pronounced dead 1,000 times." So I presume that this was quite a sort of tongue-in-cheek analysis of them as a band.
It's you can teach an old dog new tricks would be the closest things, but literally Tokten Sagten like dead things. They also did the cover of Madness's House of Fun and made it deeply terrifying, which it already is. It's about a child who visits a brothel. But
you don't know that. We'll be listening to that song with the lyrics in front of me next time.
But I just wanted to treat you guys to my reading of the lyrics to Für immer.
Okay, good. Because with Toten Sagte, I could find the lyrics. With Für immer, I couldn't. So I was hoping you'd tell us what on earth it's about.
So Toten Sagten Leben lange is much faster. I was moaning to Barbara earlier. I haven't translated in a year. My German's quite good, but the only translating I've done recently is for my students who've got German as a first language. So I'm like, für immer. I'm following you through a selection of horrific scenery. He says things like green, like slime and cold stones and pointy mountains. Even though my heart is warm, the snow is cold. Even the ghosts have run away. But vampires are hunting me. Whoa! We're dead forever. We'll never be free. I can't explain. We're dead forever. The last star is in the horrible sky. Like literally schlecht horrible. It's burning like my soul. You were always rotten, but never boring. He actually rhymed horrible with horrible. So I just put rotten. But never boring. My antidepressants are great. And I don't want to go back. I'll stand here with some demons and struggle through it with my bandmates. Whoa, we're dead forever. We'll never be free. I can't explain. We're dead forever. Mic drop.
Very good. Very good.
Sehr gut.
And
Enza.
no, because they have this mix of English and German. It's this Prozac ist immer schon deluxe. So my Prozac is always deluxe, which isn't German. That's just Madsen being weird. My Prozac is always deluxe.
Nice. They should do adverts for it.
I am quite possibly going to write that next time I ask for a prescription. I'm going to say I want my deluxe Prozac.
I mean, surely they need to be on some sort of zombie movie soundtrack.
That would not be mysterious
Is
enough.
that-
People might find
They're
them.
on Spotify,
Yeah.
so I mean, they're not that mysterious.
Honestly, I think when the pandemic's over and I'm able to go on holiday, I fully anticipate just seeing them sleeping on a park bench.
Even though Kreuzberg, I've been to Berlin quite a few times recently for work, and I stay with my friend in Kreuzberg, and it really is much nicer these days.
Okay, yeah. Like, I would say though, so if you like Madsen and you like being nice, which we all like being nice, the big Psychobilly Festival in Spain is actually running a selection on their web store, which is promoting bands who have asked for financial help in the pandemic. So if you go to psychobillystore.com and click on their like COVID support, Madsen are looking for financial help in the pandemic.
Good.
So
Okay.
I bought a t-shirt today that I can wear around since I've just lost all veneer of professionalism these days. If you like Madsen, obviously the other band I was going to talk about were Tiger Army, who I love more than some members of my immediate family, or Social Distortion, who, again, if it was some members of my family or Social Distortion, like, no shade of my family, I really love Social Distortion. I would also recommend you listen to those. My therapist once asked me what are some good things in my life, and I said there's a new Social Distortion record coming out.
And they
She looked
related
very-
to that, I'm sure.
She looked deeply confused, and I was like, but you don't like Social Distortion enough, do you? Which just, it was very, very unexpected for her. If you like Madsen, yeah, check out Social Distortion, Tiger Army.
I absolutely do like Madsen.
What I will say though is part of the thing about being punk was you can like any music and it's fine. Like, yeah, there are a lot of problems with the community. It's mostly white, mostly male dominated. Things are changing, but not especially quickly. But it is totally fine to like anything you want. I would say top shows I've been to of all time would be Joe Strummer from The Clash, Solo, Nick Cave, Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you're not just into punk. I think that's also why I really wanted you to come. I mean, we've gone everywhere from talking about punk, but yeah, with Madsen, I like how they went everywhere. I'm looking through to see what songs we haven't discussed. Communication Breakdown. I was expecting a Led Zeppelin cover, and I got a speed guitar / double bass contest, which I really enjoyed. Delirium, I didn't like at the beginning, but it grew on me. What else haven't we talked about? Wreck House Stomp. You know, that was seemed pretty
Wreck House Stomp.
And yeah, I definitely feel like my knowledge of psychobilly was It's a Psychobilly Freakout by the Reverend Horton Heat,
Oh yeah,
which I played over and over again on Guitar Hero, and that was it. So I feel enthusiastic about it. I feel that it's an area of punk that I very much want to explore further. Yeah. How about you, Fran?
Speaking of Guitar Hero, I did read in my research that the Sex Pistols re-recorded Anakin UK for that game.
Really?
Because they couldn't find the masters. So seriously, so 15 years ago, the 4 members re-recorded Anakin UK just for Guitar Hero.
Wow.
There you go.
And I'm sure they made good money from it.
would say it tells you something about the Sex Pistols output when how cool is this? And the anniversary of the Crystal Palace in South London, 1851, Great Exhibition, monument to Victorian England. At the anniversary of the Crystal Palace, the Sex Pistols played a concert and did their entire back catalogue in one night.
Really? When was that? What year?
Oh my God, like ages ago, because they used to have a concert series at Crystal Palace in London. And then like it was good for the first couple of years. Now it's like UB40.
But Fran, so how do you feel about psychobilly?
I mean,
And
I was
Manson.
kind of aware of the genre because a couple of people I used to work with were in that sort of bands. But yeah, I was expecting it to be far more punk heavy, and they've got a much diverse sound than I was expecting. Apart from his vocal, you wouldn't know that was like a punk band. You just would call them, a country band or like a rock band, and they had loads of influences. I hate to say it, but the German word I cannot pronounce, the second from last single, Totsgesser.
Totensanger.
Yeah, I was thinking that the guitar line was a bit like The Edge. I'm sorry to say that. That will annoy a lot of punk fans.
That is the correct thing to say because Kate loves you too.
Really,
Yeah.
I think
Mate,
similar sound.
I saw you two in a car park. No, not just walking past. I saw them play a show in a car park.
Really?
Yeah. Back in it was the BBC Centre car park when they used to do like live stuff there.
Coldplay did it as well, I think.
And I had a mate who somehow got us wristbands. So I was like, I'll see you two in a car park.
I thought I was going to offend the hell out of you by mentioning you too.
No. Like, honestly, I dress quite punk. My favourite genre is psychobilly, folk punk rock. But to be honest, like, I do like a bit of everything. My poor partner has been dealing with my George Harrison karaoke around the kitchen recently.
Not what I expected to come third in that sentence.
George Harrison karaoke, like, he does not appreciate. I've got my mind set on you.
Are we including the Travelling Wilburys as well to that?
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, Roy Orbison. Yeah.
The best supergroup of all time is the Travelling Wilburys.
Like, if this is the thing, like Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, all of these like gorgeously voiced men who'd be 500 years old today, Elvis, it's perfectly cool to like those in the world of psychobilly. So I'm just like,
but you two, maybe not so much.
I don't know if anyone's allowed. I don't know if you two are allowed to like you two.
I think you two may have even called themselves punks back in 1977.
Oh, they did actually. Their first album's all right though.
Have you seen the punk documentary called The Decline of Western Civilization?
No, I haven't.
It is directed by the director of Wayne's World, and in 1981 she followed loads of American punk bands in LA, including the early formation of Black Flag. It's one of the best documentaries of music of all time.
I would say, actually, if you want quite sad punk documentary, I will check that out because that looks really, really good. The one I saw that was really good was The F Word, about punks who are dads.
Really?
No, the singer from the US Bombs lost his son to drugs. The guy from Pennywise has to be like away from his family the whole time. This is when Fat Mike from NoFX was with his ex. So he like takes his daughter to school while in a latex dress. Fat Mike likes wearing ladies' clothes and stuff like that. It gets really fascinating, but also you get to see some cool music.
Yeah, I wish I had a punk documentary to recommend. All that's coming to mind is the metal documentary Anvil about the band, which is also kind of similarly sort of, about the real world, real life. But yeah, from my side, I agree with you that Mad Sin are underrated, and I think more people should check them out, even if you are psychobilly skeptic, if that's a term. I recommend it. What do you think, Fran?
I agree that Manson underrated too, but
oh yeah, don't say Madsen into your Alexa, or they play Manson.
I'm all aboard that. They're one of my
One of
favourite
Anne's
bands.
favourite bands, so there we go.
But yeah, Madsen were better than I expected. I thought they're going to be the sort of band to rely on their stage persona rather than their music. But none of the songs I skipped, which is always a good
Yeah.
thing. And yeah, I'll listen to them again.
Oh my God, we agreed. What the hell is this? So, Kate, your work is absolutely done here. Like,
The
well done.
power of love and Elvis.
So, Kate, before I hand over to you, Kate, to plug yourself, I want to plug our radio show one-off that we did, which is still up on Mixcloud. So if you like Kate and I talking, we recorded a one-off special of our Trivial Rebellion radio show for the University of Warwick radio station's 50th anniversary, and I will put that in the show notes, where we do a final punk versus indie showdown. But Kate, tell us more about your podcast, where we should listen, anything you'd like to plug.
All right. If I sound like someone whose work you like, straighttalkingenglish.co.uk is my website. You can listen to my podcast on many different forms of podcast outlets, a lot of which I can't remember signing up to. It's called Straight Talking English. I've been doing it for 2 years. The anniversary spectacular of interviews with writers is coming out in February, and we're just about to start the season on Inspector Calls. I've written some books. Some of them are quite good. One woman on Amazon said it was an absolute sham and I should feel ashamed of myself. But what can I say except how many sales has she got, bitch? So if you like the sound of me and what I do, there's a whole series called The Full Context. They're available on Amazon. So you can get them on my website, /books. Like I said, one woman told me to be ashamed of myself. I don't feel ashamed of myself. That's basically what I do in lockdown, and it is an absolute pleasure to be invited on this fine podcast. I'm on Twitter as well with TR8 Talk English, and I basically just post really jokes and then old people shout at me, so it's pretty punk, isn't it?
Thank you for being on board. Thank you for being our first guest, and I hope this wasn't a horrible ride. We love music, apparently.
Oh my
A
god,
little bit.
Yeah.
who'd have thunk it?
Do you have anything to plug, Fran? Because I feel like I plugged, Kate plugged.
Yeah. Do you have projects?
I do nothing with myself. Just be great to each other, guys, and listen to more music.
Good. I think we could all get on board with that sentiment. So on that note, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Sous-évalué. Over underrated.
Sopra sottovalutato.
Over underrated.
That's it for another episode of Over Underrated. We really enjoyed recording with Kate, and we'd love to have more guests on in future to mix it up a bit and, so we hurt other people's feelings instead of just mine and Fran's. So if there's someone you'd like to hear on our podcast, if you'd like to put yourself forward or suggest another theme, you can get in touch. Email us overunderratedmusicpod@gmail.com. Tweet us, OUMusicPod, or DM us on Instagram, or tag us, or do whatever it is that you do on Instagram. It's Over Underrated Music Pod on there. I hope you're getting through lockdown, if there is one where you are. Downloading, subscribing, all the usual things, but always a big help, as is rating. So the more you do that, the more of these we can produce. Thank you. Bye.